we're going to cover how to recreate the Boston Housing Analysis dashboard in the Start Here project. So if we navigate over to dashboards, let's take a look at what we're going to recreate. So as we open the dashboard, the first thing that we see at the top is this nice flow map, which has 4 columns, 4 headers, and shows us what's happening throughout the dashboard. Then we have 4 separate tabs with different data and tables and charts on each of them. And then we have the price recommender tool finally at the end. For a more comprehensive walkthrough of what these different charts and data sets and the price recommendation tool entail and how to use this tool, see the last video. And this one, I'm just going to go over how to recreate this dashboard from scratch. So let's go back to dashboards, hit the plus and create a new dashboard. We're going to want to click interactive and hit submit. So now let's go into this dashboard and begin the process of creating it. So the first thing that we want to do is create that nice flow map that we had at the top. So we hit the pencil to edit the dashboard. Under components, we see process diagram. Now we'll just drag this in, and this blue line shows us where it's going to be dragged in, so we'll drag it in right there. Let's save that, and you can see it's asking us how many columns, so we'll type in 4, and now we'll go in, type in 4, and now we can edit this flow map. So say these text boxes are editable, so we'll say, okay, raw data, stitch data, etc. So these are easily editable, and it's easy to just drag a text box anywhere, and these are also editable. We could do housing prices. It's also easy to change the color. Just hover over this paint, and then we can choose any color for the background. And if we wanted to draw an arrow from one box to another, click this arrow, select a target, and we'll click on that one, and now we get an arrow. So not going to completely recreate it, as it's pretty intuitive to set up the text boxes and change the text and whatnot, and set the arrows. So the next aspect of the dashboard was we had our 4 tabs. So before we add in any charts, we're going to just create these tabs so that we have everything at a high level before we start and populate the tabs with the data sets and the charts and the flows. So under components, we'll go to tabs and drag this in right underneath that flow map, and we'll quickly create our tabs. And let's just save that to see what it looks like. So we've got 4 tabs here. Obviously we haven't populated it with any visuals yet. So we'll go back and let's edit our first tab with our raw data. Now, anytime we want to add a data set or a chart that we've already created in the data sets tab, and by inspecting that and adding a chart to that, everything that we've already created is going to be under this charts over here. So we're in components. Let's go over to charts. And if you remember, the first thing that we wanted to add was sort of the attributes, the details of what the columns meant in our data set. That's very important and something that we want to see. So we have attributes details data set right here. So let's drag that in right there. As you can see, these are our attributes details. If we hover over the right side and just click, we're now able to drag it all the way to the end. And let's save that. So now we have a nice data set here showing us attribute and description for each of our feature columns. So now the next thing that we wanted to add was sort of seeing two data sets next to each other in the same block. So let's go over how to do that. We want to add a row right underneath the attributes. And then since we're going to put two data sets in this row, we'll add two columns. We'll add one column and another one. And if we once again hover over this left column, we can drag it over to make it a little bit bigger, as our data set on the left is going to be a little bit bigger and we want to see more of the columns of that one. So let's once again scroll down to charts, and we want housing prices on the right and housing features on the left. So we'll just drag those in and click save. As you can see, all of our data is here. We can scroll down, we can download it as an image or export it as a CSV, and they're visible side by side, features and prices, so we can take a look at what the data looks like before it's stitched. So similarly, now let's go over to the Stitch Data tab and we'll edit it. Very similar to our last tab, we want to now have our stitch data shown. So we will look for our stitch data here. So we have stitched housing data. So let's drag that in right there. And let's drag it across. Once again, we can also add in our description of this stitch data right underneath it. So we can do that really quick. There we go. Let's save that. And well, I forgot to drag this one to the edge. So there we go. Now we have our stitch data as well as our description of our stitch data. Very intuitive, very easy to just quickly drag those in and get a nice visual. So now we're going to go over to our predictions and we're going to edit this tab. Now for our predictions, we're just going to want to visualize how well our predictions did compared to the actual prices. So we can drag in our prediction by the LSTAT variable right there. Let's drag that across, and then prediction by rooms as well. And we can drag that across as well. So we'll save that. And now we can see a nice visual of the dark blue is the actual prices and our predicted prices are in light blue. It's a nice visual. We can scroll on the visual as well to see all of the data, and looks like our predictions did pretty well, but also looks like there's no clear correlation between one variable. That's what the distribution kind of tells us here. So finally, we want to use our trained model to create our price recommendation tool. So once again, if you want to know what the recommendation tool does, I highly recommend that you check out the last video in which I explained what it was and how to use it. But essentially, if you remember from that video, the first thing that we want to do is have our unpriced data. Now, one thing about this data set is we don't just want to be able to view it, but we also want to be able to edit that data set. So under components, we're going to add an editable data set. Let's drag that in right here. And then under table type, we want to just do just a single table, and we want that to be our unpriced data right here. So let's now hit generate table component. And as you can see, once we save, this is our unpriced data, and we're now able to edit this. For example, we can delete this row, we could add a new row, we could delete everything, etc. So now we're able to edit this data set, and once we hit save changes, that data set will actually get updated. So the goal of this is to be able to update this data set, then run the flow and see what the output is, all from the dashboard. So we want to now run the flow from the dashboard. So as you can imagine, under components here at the very bottom, there's a run flow. So we're going to drag that in. Right there. Let's scroll down to sort of configure this run flow. So let's save it and give it a second here. Okay, so for pipeline, as you can see, we have all of the different flows that we've created within this project. So we want to do our price recommender, and we'll give it a nice label, recommend prices. We want to see the log when it succeeds, and we want to set this edit variables to true. And then we'll hit confirm pipeline selection. And once again, just we'll give it a moment here. Should. So now we see which flow we're running, and we were able to run that flow. The last thing we want to do is see the output of that flow. So let's go and add a data set here, which is going to be our recommended prices right there. So let's drag that in as well. Make this a little bit smaller. Drag this across and drag it down a little bit. And now we'll hit save. So now, as you can see, our unpriced data is here and our recommended prices are here, where this data is the same as the unpriced data with an added column of that price prediction that we're using our trained model for. So as you can imagine, now the goal would be to add a new data point here, and we would expect, since this neighborhood is younger and has a lower population of lower status and a good amount of rooms, that we should probably get a slightly higher number than 2870. So we've made this change. Let's hit save changes. And now all we have to do is just click this button, and in the background it is now running that flow that we created called the price recommender, using this data set that we just edited to add this point. So it's calculating using the trained model. As you can see, ran successfully. And now the only thing that we have to do is just refresh this chart right here. So let's click force refresh, and we should see a new row and a new price as well. So we refresh that and we see our new data point here with 65, 9, and 7, as well as a new price here, which was just slightly above our previous data point, which makes a lot of sense. So that's an overview of how to recreate the different aspects of the dashboard as seen in the Boston Housing Analysis dashboard. I hope that this was insightful. Most of this is quite intuitive. From editing, you can really see all of your options and add anything you want, including charts that you've created from data sets, any visuals, stuff like that. This tool is very powerful and, like I said, very intuitive and easy to make these dashboards within just minutes. So yeah, hope that this was helpful, and feel free to mess around with the dashboarding and create some cool visuals. Thank you.